Welcome back to the Mountain Morning Show. Very happy to have Dustin Steinacker here. He is the most recent winner from the L. Ron Hubbard Writers of the Future. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're going to be in volume 33. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, I am excited for you. Of course, we've been lucky enough to have several of the award winners here on the show, some that I know even you've looked up to over the years, including Orson Scott Card and others. So give me a little bit of background on you as a writer, first of all.
Yeah, so I've been writing seriously for about 3 years. And it's tough because growing up, you read a lot of different types of literature, and sometimes in your head you're kind of rewriting things on the fly and thinking, here's how I do this, here's how I do that. But it really wasn't until just one night I was just laying in bed and thinking of a fresh idea and just thinking this needs to be written, and I got up at 3 and just started getting down what I could on paper, and that kind of kicked it off, yeah. You
just got up 3 in the morning and started writing. That's kind of, you know, but I've heard that before from writers. That's not unusual, is it? That suddenly the idea presents itself. You've got to write it down before you forget it. You've got to get to work on it. Was that kind of I'm assuming that's part of the feeling that you had at that moment? Yeah,
and that was also kind of the moment where that spark happened, where it was, I could actually do this. Yeah. That was the first time I seriously thought about starting a story from beginning to end and taking that idea and having it be my own, and being able to put my name on it.
Talk to me about some of the the intricacies of the writing itself for a moment, because I think that's what most people are afraid of.
Yeah.
Figuring out what tense to write in, figuring out the path of the characters and introducing them, and how much exposition is necessary, and where to get the high point at the early part of the book to get people to stay. Talk to me about the mechanics of that. That must be challenging, I think.
It really is, but one thing that's nice is you can use the things that you can already do as a crutch to do the other things. So I think everybody starts with something different, but I start with an image that really speaks to me, and try to wonder, like, why would this exist? Why would this happen? And then I can work out the other things from there, and maybe characters last. I'm sure some people start with character and then build toward that type of imagery. But with the process, I really think there's so many elements, and you have to learn all of them at some point. But using what you can do as a crutch to build in some other area really helps to make that transition a lot easier.
Indeed. Have you taken a lot of classes for this? I know you at one point in high school you switched from kind of the typical English towards the writing side of it, right? Is my understanding?
Not so much in high school, but actually when I was a graduate student doing public administration, prior to that it was social science.
I see.
And so I was writing papers, I was writing things that were definitely not fiction.
Okay.
But you have to be so economical and rigorous with language. And I think that was still teaching me things, even though I didn't realize it. And then I was in grad school, and I actually entered this short story into a college contest at BYU and won the graduate division, but in public administration and not even a writing field. So other than a few writing courses, I hadn't done anything except on an amateur basis, which maybe I'm still doing now.
Well, I guess you are too. When you consider the fact that with this win, you'll be attending the Writers' Workshop, which is an intensive course, L. Ron Hubbard course, which, I mean, when you think about writing, L. Ron Hubbard, probably one of the most prolific writers in the history of this country, certainly. Someone to really give, I mean, his course of study is impressive. Yeah. And it will probably, I'm sure, add quite a little bit to what you're doing.
Yeah, and at that point, hopefully I'll be shopping around my first novel. I'm currently on the second draft, and I'd love to learn what I can from those writers and get something into a publishable state that's novel length.
Yeah, never too late to learn, right? Always
never.
Continue that. Talk to me about some of these people who are your heroes in this genre. There are certainly some great ones, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
One of my favorites and one of my favorite to speak with, Orson Scott Card.
Yeah, and there were two in particular that really spoke to me growing up. He did Speaker for the Dead, which was sci-fi, sort of very sociological actually, and that might have kicked off some of my interest in the social sciences. And also Lost Boys, which is kind of a semi-autobiographical horror novel, which is kind of a lot of honesty to it, and it portrays sides of the culture, particularly LDS culture, that you don't always see. And those in particular really stuck with me growing up, and I wasn't to an age where I could really understand a lot of some of the more adult areas of those books. But at least the fantastical ideas really appealed to me. And that was actually some of the first adult fiction that I read back in kind of middle school at that point. Before it was very much kind of Bruce Colville was an early person for me that was huge, Kay Applegate, and a lot of that kind of mass market stuff. And then moving up to adult fiction.
You were a big reader, I guess, then is what you're saying, for sure. You read a lot of books.
Yeah.
As a young person. Talk to me about that. We, we of course host summer fun reading for kids. The reading is just as important, I think, to writing as any other part of that skill, right? Yeah,
and I think you're training to write if you're reading. You might just not know it until after the fact. Because I think the human brain is very good at being influenced by things without plagiarizing on its own if you don't force it. And if you're fueling the flames of creativity with constant books and being reflective about what you read, I really think that can help to push you into that creative space really quickly.
Talk to me about the book. Now, we can't talk, or your story, we can't talk much about it, but the name of it, can we talk about that?
Unfortunately, no, because because I am the first quarter finalist.
Yeah.
It's going to be judged anonymously in the spring with 3 other stories.
I see.
And there's really no bit of information that wouldn't give away which story it is.
How long is it?
It's about 10,000 words now. The story, the contest can range, it's up to 17,000 as a submission, which is fairly significant for a short story.
Indeed.
But what I'm actually working on now that I can talk about is a novel, which is a colonial fantasy. And right now it's about 120,000 words. It's going to have to shrink down. That's fairly long for a first novel. But it's basically about a group of Wendigo shaman trying to pick up their society after a genocide, kind of a little abstract and personal in some ways. And that's hopefully around December or January, something I'll be trying to shop around.
Wow, that's tremendous. You're writing a lot, aren't you?
A lot, yeah.
Are you spending a lot of these late nights again up writing? Is that when you find it? Or is it all day now? I would love to be writing at 7 or 8 in the morning. That's the most productive time, but sometimes when you haven't hit your word count, you're on the computer at 11 trying to make that up. And that's what it really is about. I think a lot of people don't realize you do set a goal every day. I'm going to write this many words each day, right? And when you kind of get to that point, you're like, unless you've got something to continue, you're done. You move on, you do other things. It's a job in that sense, right? And you really do have to treat it like a job. Most people do not finish a novel who start one. It wasn't until I started saying I got to be accountable for this to myself, got to be accountable to my family, that I was able to hit those goals regularly. Wow. Well, you're obviously hitting some goals. You've got another book already coming before we even find out about your short story, and of course, volume 33 of the L. Ron Hubbard Writers of the Future competition. I wish you the very best, my friend. Thank you so very much for spending some time with us. We, of course, are always excited to have a great writer in our midst. We got a lot more happening here on the Mountain Morning Show right after these messages. You're watching Park City.